The Harvard lawsuit was that the average kid that got in that was a legacy was better qualified than the average applicant.
Do you think suing Harvard for legacy admissions is okay? Let's get into it. So a recent historical Supreme Court ruling on Harvard admissions said that providing benefits to some applicants at the expense of others isn't okay. This ruling cuts back affirmative action in universities. Affirmative action refers to policies that help minorities with discrimination in employment and education. However, 3 advocacy groups used the ruling in order to fight back against the ruling. They did this by suing Harvard. So guys, concerning this topic, guys, I gathered a few videos on this topic. Let's watch them and leave me your own thoughts in the comment section below, and let's get into it.
Why are there legacy admissions? Why is 20% of Notre Dame legacy? Why is 14% of Harvard? From a college perspective, I think it's easy to understand. It's like, you got grandpa, you got dad, you got son, you get in these wills, you get in these trusts, you get a named building, you get. But there's more to it than that. The truth that came out in the Harvard lawsuit was that the average kid that got in that was a legacy was better qualified than the average applicant. Just a little bit short of the average non-legacy admit, meaning they're better than most, but not as good as the other kids that got in. So they're just giving them a little nudge. And that's why I think elite admissions is a game of inches. I think it's a stain on the system. I think it's a holdover from when America, at least a lot of America, believed in eugenics and the right white Christian families could go to the right colleges and this, that, and the other. And so I'd love to see it gone away with, just like Johns Hopkins did. But that's why it still exists. It's good for colleges.
In 2020, following the death of George Floyd, my international sorority got rid of preferential treatment for legacies. And it made a lot of people mad. Now, they did it because legacy in predominantly white institutions like sororities and a lot of universities is inextricably tied to race. Because for the majority of the institution's existence, whether it be for sororities or most universities, the same opportunities for admission were not afforded to non-white applicants. Which means that legacy in and of itself is in fact a form of affirmative action. When we're talking about legacy, we're talking about a family member of the applicant either attending or belonging to an institution to which that applicant is seeking admission. Having seen this conversation play out 3 years ago with regards to sororities, it is not surprising to me that following the court ruling against affirmative action, that we're now seeing challenges to the legacy structure. Because it's very obvious to see that legacy in predominantly white institutions disproportionately favors one race over others. And if the Supreme Court's goal was to take race out of admissions entirely, it should be a no-brainer that legacy consideration should also have to go.
I'm going to preface this by saying I don't support legacy admissions to any schools. I don't care if your mom and dad work at the school. I don't care if your uncle donated to the school. You should get in based on merit. But to answer your question, it's just under 6%. Yes, 6. Not 40, not 35, 6. But see, like most data from the left, they combine it with something else to manipulate it. So they include legacy students with recruited athletes to get that number. So are you against scholarships for athletes? Or you just don't like white people?
So as we're all talking about affirmative action, the Supreme Court decision, and legacy admissions at universities, I got a story. I got a student into Stanford. Well, I got a student accepted to Stanford. Well, sort of. She was eminently qualified, first-generation college student myself, so I wanted to utilize the knowledge that I have about college admissions, colleges in general. She had a 4.2 GPA. She was a transfer student from a community college with 2 associate's degrees. All the things that supposedly these colleges say they're looking for. Just a top elite student, but not a legacy admission. And the only way she could afford Stanford without $1 billion in student loans was to apply under Stanford's policy of if your parents make under $150,000, you get Stanford for free. But they don't take everybody. So if you need that, they then put you in a separate list and then rank you by how well you did over everybody else who also needs that financial aid. And she was still like way at the top of the list, but not at the top of the list. So she got a letter from Stanford literally saying, yeah, you're eminently qualified, we'd be glad to have you, but nah, you know, they couldn't afford her. That's literally what legacy admissions means, is only the people that can afford to go are allowed access to that elite level of education. We don't actually value education in and of itself in this country, in most countries. It's all about power and access to resources.
Haven't seen this, last Thursday when the Supreme Court ruled to end race-based admission practices, activists sued Harvard claiming that their use of legacy favors mostly white students and is in fact a race-based admission practice. So let's talk about the facts. A court case last week ruled that colleges cannot use race in their admission practices. Legacy is an advantage given to you if your parents or grandparents attended a university. That's the most common definition. And if it's a multi-generational tradition for your family to go to an Ivy League institution, even more props to you. However, it's pretty hard to have generational legacy when colleges didn't even start accepting small amounts of students of color until the late 1960s. Let's break it down. Princeton's first black students weren't accepted until 1947, Yale's not until 1964, Georgetown not until 1963, UPenn not until 1967, and data shows that legacies amongst Ivy League institutions are 70% white, and that being a legacy raises your chance of being admitted by 20 percentage points, and if that's not race-based admission practices, I don't know what is.
So you mean to tell me that if your father, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather all went to Harvard, and somewhere along the line somebody donated a huge amount of money, probably to get the science building named after them, that then you currently got preferential treatment for admissions to Harvard, that your admission wasn't based on pulling yourself up by your bootstraps or your grades. In fact, you could be dumb as a box of rocks, but you got admitted because of a legacy admission. And that the majority of these legacy admissions were overwhelmingly white. Well, knock me over with a fucking feather. Who'd have thought that would have happened?
So guys, to conclude on my little research, here goes. So these three groups say that Harvard's preferential treatment to wealthy donors and the children of alumni who are predominantly white, which essentially affect minorities. The advocacy groups even managed to point to a Supreme Court statement that was used to cut affirmative action. The Supreme Court statement noted eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it. And the groups argue that this means that there should be no way to identify who your parents are, so that discriminatory generational imbalance can finally end. And so I had for you guys in today's video. Please leave your own thoughts in the comment section below. Share your own thoughts in the comment section below concerning this entire topic, guys. I will definitely see you in my next video. Peace.